The baseball season has come to an end, while basketball, football, hockey, soccer, and more are all rolling. Let's do a market update and see which cards have gone up and down the most, and try to predict which ones might be headed north sometime soon. Hey everyone, welcome back to another good old-fashioned data dive video. My name is Tyler Nethercott, better known as TPott, and I'm back here at the desk. Time to get into some data for a market update. There's a lot going on in the sports world right now, and there's a lot going on in the sports card world, and we're going to cover a whole bunch of different sports today. So there's something for everybody, and we're going to get right into it. If you want to use market movers, if you want your access to data like this, track your entire collection, track any card that has sold basically ever, you got to get Market Movers. Go to marketmoversapp.com, and if you use code DIVE, D-I-V-E, you'll get 2 weeks free and then 20% off any plan for life. So let's get into some data. All right, we're going to start out with baseball, and then I'll get into football, basketball, hockey, soccer, so something for everybody today. Make sure you stay with me all along. So I'm going to start out with baseball. I'm on the price movements page in Market Movers. If you don't know price movements, this is taking our database of 4.3 million cards that we track pricing on every single day, and it's combining all of those so that you can look at which cards or which players' prices have gone up and down the most in a given time frame. So I can switch between different time frames. I'm going to look at the last 60 days here. I like 60 days as a snapshot. It kind of gives you enough data to know. But like I said, you can move between different time frames to see what's gone up recently, what's gone up over a longer horizon. This is the most valuable tool, in my opinion, in Market Movers to find deals, to figure out which cards you might be able to buy low on, and to find arbitrage. So I use this all the time in my videos. A lot of other content creators use this, and a lot of our users take advantage of this to figure out buying opportunities. So right off the bat, we got Walker Buehler. We're going to see a lot of World Series type players in here, and a lot of people who maybe made some noise in the playoffs. So Walker Buehler up 41.2% from 60 days ago. You remember he was injured for a long time. Walker Buehler came into the league pretty hot, really good pitcher, frankly, and then he was injured and he struggled, and he came back and was one of the World Series heroes for the Los Angeles Dodgers, closing that series out for them. So no surprise to see him up 41%. With that being said, as always, when players have gone up somewhat meteorically in a time frame, I'm always a little cautious. I would say if you're holding Walker Buehler cards right now, maybe consider selling them unless they're your PC cards, and I wouldn't necessarily be buying his cards at this moment. I would wait another few weeks, maybe another month, until things cool down. Look at mid-December when baseball starts to cool off. Freddie Freeman up 33%. He was obviously a man on a mission, hitting, what was it, 4 games in a row with a home run, something like that, and more than that if you go back to the last World Series that he played in with the Braves. So he broke records, and he was obviously fantastic. Took home the MVP, the World Series MVP. You got Giancarlo Stanton, who was a big reason why the Yankees made it to the World Series, one of the big reasons. Unlike Aaron Judge, who unfortunately struggled for the most part in the playoffs, Stanton came through in a big-time way for them. Another guy who came through in a big-time way, very much to my chagrin, is Steven Kwan for the Guardians. He was, unstoppable when they played the Tigers in the divisional series, and we couldn't get him out. We just could not get this guy out. He's up 17%. Mark Vientos was fantastic for the Mets. Fernando Tatis Jr. was doing Fernando Tatis Jr. things for the Padres. They did obviously get eliminated and choked that series away, but he was fantastic for them. Jose Ramirez, obviously on the Guardians, Juan Soto. So a lot of guys here who were in the playoffs, and then we start getting into the stuff that I call kind of negligible movement. Whenever I see players up or down 10% or less over a time frame like 2 months, I don't really put much stock into it. And the thing you got to know about this too is it's taking into account all their different cards. So anytime we see a player up collectively, some of their cards will be up more than that. Some of them will be down more than that, or less than what they're up. This is kind of averaging out everything for them. So I like to scroll down and kind of look. I'm surprised, honestly, that Pete Alonso wasn't up a little higher. I think he was. I think he's actually cooled down now. He started to come back down to earth. Corbin Carroll, basically flat over the last 2 months, and to me, that's actually really encouraging, and I'll tell you why. Corbin Carroll struggled massively to start this year. His stats before the All-Star break were not good. He was a guy that obviously a lot of people were really high on coming into this year. He helped lead the Diamondbacks to the World Series a year ago. And really, he's a fantastic, very, very talented young player, especially offensively. So he started out the year really, really poorly, like looked lost at the plate, frankly. His cards came down massively prior to that. Then it was a tale of two seasons. After the All-Star game, he completely broke out. He had a fantastic second half. I think his OPS plus was like 137 in the second half of the year. He finished the season with like a 3.4 WAR, and a lot of it had to do with that second half. So to me, it showed he was kind of in a funk, in a slump, and he came back and he was able to perform really well. So his cards did start to tick up some, not a ton, but the fact that they've leveled off shows me there's some confidence right now, even though that, the Diamondbacks are out and it's been a little while since he played, they're still holding steady. I really like Corbin Carroll among all these baseball players. There's many, I think, to choose from going into next season, and a lot of guys who should see some buzz going into next year. But Carroll, to me, is a guy that I've actually bought 4 of his Bowman First Chrome Refractors PSA 10. I bought 4 of those for $45 each. And my plan is just, I don't know, wait and see. It's kind of at a low watermark, and I think they could get back up into the 70, 75, maybe even $90 plus range, depending on what he does. So I always talk about buying those commodity cards, those liquid cards. They're at a right price point and a right, rarity, and they shine. And I just think it's a nice card. So what I might end up doing with a card like that is selling off like 3 of them and holding one, maybe for the long term, or just keeping it for my collection, because I do like Corbin Carroll quite a bit. Let's keep scrolling down, and I'm going to kind of go down toward the bottom of the list. You got Acuna, whose prices obviously came down this season because of the injury, so he's a guy I'm watching kind of through the offseason. Mookie Betts already down 2%. Mookie ended up having a decent playoff run this year. He started out pretty cold, and then he turned it on a little bit later. He's still an all-time great from this generation. Bobby Witt Jr. had a fantastic year, and I want to go all the way down to the bottom of the list here. Paul Goldschmidt, he really, really struggled this year. Obviously, he had that MVP campaign, and he hasn't really been the same since then. I'm very surprised, in a way, to see Jackson Merrill down 16%. He was pretty hot. I think this is like a tale of two stories here, in a way, between him and Judge, in that Merrill was hot, and then things have just cooled down now in the offseason. He might be a buy. I like him. I like Jackson Chourio. I like both of those guys. Aaron Judge, like I said, he just didn't play particularly well in the playoffs, and that was really disappointing. He's obviously, the MVP this season, but he didn't play well in the playoffs. So in spite of the fact, and then the Yankees didn't win the World Series, I think his cards could keep coming down more than this over the next month. I don't know where the floor is. I don't know where they'll bottom out. But Aaron Judge, if you still believe that he's going to have another huge season next year and maybe for a few years to come, could be a nice buying opportunity maybe in the next 2 to 4 weeks, especially if he sees any more softening on his card prices. So here's some notable guys from the World Series that I think it's worth looking at. You've got Judge. His Chrome Auto only down 4%. So like I said, it depends, on the time frame. And then you've got his, this is actually his prospect from 2013, which unfortunately does not have the first on it like so many other cards do, but this one's down actually 34%. So much bigger swing over the last 60 days between those cards, and that's what I was talking about, though you can see those kinds of things. Soto down 16% just on his Chrome Update base PSA 10, down 4% on his Prospect Auto BGS 9.5. And then you got Ohtani here. This card is actually up 6% on his pitching rookie auto first, and then down 24%. So when you see guys get, super hot, a lot of times it is these commodity cards that see the bigger price swings than these types of cards. So in a way, I'm a little surprised to see this much volatility on Judge's Bowman First. But that's kind of the update on the key guys from the World Series for baseball. Let's switch over to football, which I think is a lot more relevant at this particular moment. Now we're basically mid-season. There's a lot that's been going on, players who have exceeded expectations and teams, others that have been big surprises. So Jaden Daniels, he's cooled off over the last 4 games. He really hasn't looked particularly good, but overall in the season, his numbers are still really impressive, and he's definitely the front runner right now for Rookie of the Year. He's up 79% this season, 60 days. He's obviously getting new cards coming out. He did have that Topps Now card, so he's seen a lot of love. People are really excited about him. Drake May getting the start now for the Patriots. He's been okay. He hasn't been atrocious. He hasn't been fantastic. He showed some signs. He's mobile. He's up 47%. David Montgomery, and let's look at actually some Lions here. You know I got to talk about my Lions. So David Montgomery up 38%, Goff up 30%, Amon-Ra St. Brown up 10%, and then I think Gibbs is down here somewhere up only 4%. So Gibbs, of those guys, had the most buzz going into the season, so I'm not surprised to see him. But Lions obviously are playing fantastic, knock on wood. I hope that's not jinxed at any point because it's my sports fandom dream to see the Lions win the Super Bowl. D-Hop got traded to the Chiefs, and that saw an immediate boost in his card prices in spite of the fact that he's really only had one good game for them so far. Joe Mixon is fighting hard against Father Time and is up 24%. Lamar looks like he's poised to win his third MVP, but the Ravens in general have been somewhat difficult to figure out this year as a team. Many weeks, they look like the best team in football, and people are saying, oh, the Ravens are going to win the Super Bowl this year. Then again, their defense is arguably the worst defense I can remember in my entire life seeing for a Ravens team. It's actually surprising how bad they have been, especially against the pass. They've lost to the Raiders. They've lost games that they shouldn't have. So it's really surprising. I don't know what to make of the Ravens. They're going to be in the playoff mix. I thought they were going to win the division this year, and they haven't, so who knows. But Derrick Henry obviously has had a really good season for them. I have him on both of my fantasy teams. He's up 11.5%. Let's kind of keep scrolling down now. We're getting into that 10%. I just want to see if like any names jump out at me. Russell Wilson is a guy, so we did a Market Movers member live stream. It's a public live stream that we do every month, and we did it last Tuesday night. So keep an eye out for those if you haven't seen them yet. We do tons of prizes and giveaways for Market Mover members. We do trivia. Jeff and I answer a bunch of questions. It's a really good time. We stream for about 2 hours, and it's really fun. You can actually go back and watch last week's stream on this channel if you want to do that. Jeff brought up and asked me a question like, who do I think of all the football players would stand to go up the most between now and the playoffs, basically? And he said that his son Reeves said it was Russell Wilson. I don't buy that. I don't believe it. I think the Steelers are kind of the goofy team in the mix right now, that they're really good, mostly because of their defense. They just beat the Ravens, and they did it without scoring a touchdown. So I don't really believe in the hype, or whatever hype might be or might not be around Russell Wilson, but he does seem to have firmly taken over that starter position over Justin Fields in spite of the hot start with Fields at the helm. I think if I were going to look at one player maybe to be the best bet between now and the playoffs, I think it could be Josh Allen. They just upset the Chiefs, or at least beat them. I don't know how much of an upset it was. I was expecting the Chiefs to lose that game, to be totally honest. But the Bills look very much like the team to beat in the AFC this year, in my opinion. And if they get into the playoffs with hopefully only one more loss to the Lions, then that would mean they're poised in really good position with home field advantage. And I could see Josh Allen having some buzz around his card prices at that point. Let's keep scrolling down, and now we're kind of getting to the negatives. Mahomes holding steady. He's basically flat, has not had a good season. In spite of the record, he's been very, very middle of the road. Doesn't look like, I think he's like fourth in MVP odds, maybe fifth now, depending on when you check. To me, I don't even really understand how he's in the MVP conversation. Like, I know the team's record is really good, but I would give the MVP to Joe Burrow before I would give it to Patrick Mahomes this year, because Burrow's done everything he can in spite of his team and everybody else messing things up. And I love Mahomes. You guys know that. Justin Herbert's another guy that Jeff and I both have said we're pretty bullish on at this point. Jim Harbaugh has that team turned around. Their schedule is, I don't know, rest of the way, I think they're 7-3 right now. Rest of the way, it's kind of difficult. They've got a few tough games, a few easier. They should finish in the playoffs, squarely in the playoffs. So I'm going to go all the way to the bottom here, and you see Will Levis, Anthony Richardson, Daniel Jones, Aiden O'Connell, Caleb Williams, Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, Bryce Young. Is there a theme here, guys? Is there any kind of a theme? Anything any of you who have been watching this channel recognize about those players? Oh, that's right. Those are all the players, literally all the players before the season started that I told you to watch out for, and who I said I believed would go down in price. And literally all of them have been going down, 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 down. Daniel Jones just demoted to third string, not even second string. The one person that surprises me on this entire list is CJ Stroud. I actually thought Stroud was a buy before the season. I did caution that I was worried about potential sophomore slump, but Stroud was a guy that I thought was the real deal. I still think he's the real deal. I still think he's very good. But he got more weapons, and Mixon is having a fantastic season, and somehow Stroud is struggling. Now, he did lose Nico Collins for a while, then he lost Stephon Diggs for the season. He had to kind of, play roulette with his different receiving options. That can definitely impact you and your timing and just being on the same page with your receivers. But it's still C.J. Stroud, so I expected more for him. So I'm watching him closely, as the Texans also, because of the weakness of that division, should be in position to make a playoff appearance. Maybe his cards will rebound a little bit throughout the season. So that's kind of football. Let's look at some specific charts. I'm going to start here with Mahomes, who, like I said, kind of a little bit all over. This is the last 30 days, down 15%, almost 16% on his Prism Silver PSA 10, down just 2% on his Optic Base, and down 7% on his Optic Hollow PSA 10. So I think for Mahomes right now, it all comes down to whether or not you think the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl again this year, because some years that doesn't impact their prices, surprisingly. When Mahomes won his first Super Bowl, it really didn't impact his card prices. But if they win another one and they three-peat, I have a hard time thinking how that wouldn't positively impact his cards, how people wouldn't finally go, holy cow, this guy is officially the new GOAT. This guy's officially on track to legitimately contend with Tom Brady and all of his records. They'd probably have to give him some love. He's really the arch villain. You either love him or hate him at this point. But he's somebody that I think I'd be firmly in the hold camp right now. I wouldn't be selling Patrick Mahomes right now. I also don't know that I'd be buying Patrick Mahomes right now. I'm probably kind of in wait-and-see mode with him. Here's some other guys, obviously, of note that I mentioned. Lamar Jackson up actually 200% over the last 60 days on his Prism Base PSA 10. That's pretty crazy. Up 47% on his Optic Hollow. So I think what you're seeing here is a card that had come down significantly. It's a more commodity card, though Pop 756 isn't super, super high. So it had come down a lot, and now it's ticking back up in the right direction. This is a card I've referenced a lot that had come down to like $500, and now it's up into the 700s, which is, I think, easily where it belongs, if not higher. Joe Burrow down 41% on his Prism Base, but up 8% on his Prism Silver. That's kind of funny. And then Justin Herbert here, down 5% on his Prism Silver PSA 10, up 14% on his Optic Hollow PSA 10. So Herbert's actually a guy I was hoping would come down somewhat significantly during this season, because I really believe in Jim Harbaugh as their coach, and he's a guy that I believe in long term. So I don't know. Maybe they'll kind of fly under the radar this year. Herbert's not having a fantastic year. He's starting to gel with Ladd McConkey and the rest of the offense a little bit more. If they get bounced in the first round of the playoffs or something, I don't think he'll see a lot of life around his cards. Maybe they come down a lot. And if they do, I'm definitely going to be buying Justin Herbert. I really think he's a very talented quarterback. That's my opinion. You let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. Some guys that I didn't believe in that I mentioned. I'll stop, gloating, but I just want to point this out all on one screen. Everybody told me I was completely wrong about Jordan Love. He's down 20%. Everybody told me I was wrong about Anthony Richardson. He's down 48%. And Jeff said it all along that he was not a good bet. Everybody yelled at me in the comments and told me that I was crazy about Trevor Lawrence. He's down 70%. This is the last 90 days. Down 70% on his Optic Hollow PSA 10 in the last 90 days. Caleb Williams down 65%. I made a prediction. I believe it was, 4 games ago? I said that the Bears were going to finish the season 1-10. That was my prediction. I said the Bears are going to finish 1-10. So far, they've lost every game since I made that prediction, including the 2 easiest games that they could have won, which I believe was that against Jacksonville and New England. So they lost both of those games. They blew it against the Packers, and it's not looking good for the Bears. And Caleb Williams has the same exact touchdown total that he had like after week 5 or something. He just hasn't thrown a touchdown in weeks. And then Bryce Young, I don't know, he's making a comeback now, I guess, Bryce Young is. He's back in the starter role, and the Panthers have won 2 games in a row. I don't know that really is a streak just yet, but we'll see how it plays out for the rest of the year. He's looked better. I don't know that I believe in him, but he's looked better. And I do like Bryce Young. I'm actually rooting for him. So let's switch to basketball. We're looking at the price movements here. Grady Dick, I'm going to tell you what I've said about players in the past here. I wouldn't be buying. If you think Grady Dick is going to be a good investment, a good player, in the league, the thing that's working for him right now is that Toronto's absolutely horrible, and he's getting a ton of minutes and a ton of usage, and he's putting up a lot more shots this year. But he's doing it with slightly worse efficiency than last year. His shooting percentages are not good. His stats overall are not good. It's just that he's gone from like 8 to 20 points per game that suddenly has people going, oh man, Grady Dick, he's having great, great stats or whatever. He's really not. He's really not playing well. It feels very like Jordan Poole-esque. So I'd be careful. I'd pump the brakes on Grady Dick. If I start seeing his shooting percentage and his like effective field goal percentage go up into the 50s, then I'd be like, okay, this guy's sort of turning a corner. Maybe he can become a viable option. But right now, like, look at what's happened with Tyler Hero's cards over time. And he was much better than Grady Dick's been at any point in his career so far. So I'd be really careful with him. Cleveland just handed their first loss as of recording this video. Lost to Boston. They were down big at the half, came back, put up 40 in the third, got it close, and I think lost by 3 points. It was a very close game at the end. So not surprising to see Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland both up big time this season. They have looked very good. Bilal Coulibaly had a good Olympics for the French team. Obviously a high draft pick a year ago, and he's been playing well for Washington. We can kind of keep scrolling down. Evan Mobley's looked really solid. I don't know if he can ever take off offensively enough to really get attention behind him, but he is a fantastic player. He's the type of player that I think a lot of people would like to have on their basketball teams. Cam Thomas has been a fantastic scorer this year so far for the Nets, who are playing better than I anticipated that they would. Speaking of Tyler Hero, up 5%. Chet Holmgren up 3.5%, even in spite of the injury now. So he's an interesting player to watch with the injury to see if he comes down, because the Thunder are very, very good. As expected, they're really good. He was playing very well. He locked up Wemby in the matchup that he had to start the season, and then unfortunately he got injured on that terrible, nasty fall. I think he like fractured his pelvis or something. It was really rough. Cade Cunningham, I'm starting to distance myself from my fandom and like card investments and fantasy player picks and other things. I'm starting to compartmentalize those, because when I go big into the players that I like and the teams that I like and I root for them and then it doesn't work out, it just hurts even more. It hurts so much. It hurts financially, emotionally, and I don't like that. So when Jeff and I did our contest to see whose basketball card investment portfolio would go up between now and the playoffs the most, he picked Cade Cunningham. I did not. I'll say I'm really happy and really enthusiastic about what I've seen the last 4 to 5 games from Cade, specifically in the assist to turnover ratio. That's been the big thing. He's turning the ball over some games 6, 7, 8, 9 times. You can't do that. He's gotten it down with multiple games, like 2 or 3 turnovers. That's much better. And he's like 4th in the league in assists per game. So I like what I'm seeing from Cade. He's finally showing some flashes. I hope he can stay healthy this year. That's been a problem in his career so far. So let me know. He's obviously a big name. We'll look a little bit more at his chart. Let me know what you think about Cade Cunningham. Golden State's off to an incredibly hot start. I'm very surprised not to see Curry's cards up more than 2% in the last 60 days. Actually really surprised by that, so who knows? But there's got to be some life behind that soon. He obviously had a fantastic Olympics. Maybe they're still riding high from that run during the Olympics this summer. Kobe White, Jaden Ivey, we're kind of in the flat territory. Really surprised to see Shea flat, up 0.6%. Tatum flat, 0.4%. I mean, those guys are obviously going to be right in the MVP conversation this year. Also really surprised to see Embiid only down 0.3%, considering he's like playing every other game or not playing and missed time and didn't look particularly good in the game that he came back. I told Jeff I think we're heading into like Kawhi Leonard, Paul George territory with this rest and everything. I don't know where Joel Embiid's career can really go from here. Let's keep scrolling down. Who else stands out here? You got Lonzo, you got Trae Young. Those are both 2 of Jeff's guys back in the day. We know that. Scotty Barnes, Maxey down 3%. I'm going to go all the way down, and let's actually just do this. I can come up here, and I can just click this. All right, so we're at the bottom of the barrel here, and I've got Rui down 25.8%, Mikal Bridges down big time. He went to the Knicks, and I made a video reacting to NBA this summer, and I said I was really excited for him to go to the Knicks and to keep an eye on him. And I remember somebody did comment. Let me know if you're watching this video, by the way, in the comments. Somebody commented and said, this won't be good for his card prices because he's not going to be a focal point of the offense necessarily. And I actually kind of agreed with that. I was making the video at the time saying that the trade would boost his card prices, and they did. And now they're coming down because there's a lot of mouths to feed. There's a lot of balls to go around, and Mikal Bridges to me is like the quintessential type of player, kind of like an Evan Mobley, a little bit smaller, but long, defensive, really good player to have on your team, not necessarily the player who's going to command the spotlight and have highlight dunks and things like that. Sabrina Ionescu down 19%. They obviously won the championship, And so now her prices are coming down, not surprising. Wemby, down 18%. You know, a lot of this has to do with the timing of releases and when cards came out. We saw Topps Chrome come out. We saw Topps Mercury come out, different sets. So some of those things just coming down big time. But Wemby also hasn't looked super great this year. He's had a couple of really big games. He started out the season really slowly. It's still early. I think he's going to continue to develop throughout this year. He's still very young. I'd be watching Wemby cards. I picked up a couple of his Prism PSA 10s at Collecticon a couple months ago. Those are down like 20% from when I bought them. But I'm still optimistic about them, and I'm not going to hit the panic button or anything on those. Jaren Jackson Jr. being down 17% doesn't really make any sense to me. He's fantastic. He's looking really good. He's fantastic. So that's kind of surprising to me. Halliburton, I don't know what happened to Tyrese Halliburton. It's not like he has the yips. But a year ago, he looked like a top 3 guard in the NBA for much of the NBA season. And then something happened, and he just stopped playing well. He stopped shooting well. He just suddenly didn't look as effective. And this year, he's okay. The Pacers aren't particularly good. Just really weird. I don't know what's going on. If anybody has any insight into what might be going on with Tyrese Halliburton, let me know, because I can't remember the last time I saw something like that in the NBA, such a sharp change in a player's performance. I think it was like right after the All-Star game. He did that skills contest, maybe got into his head. Zion down 9%. He's a guy that at this point, I think the ship has sailed. If I were holding any Zion Williamson cards, which I'm not, I would sell them. I would sell them all. Just liquidate them. Sunk cost fallacy. Get out. I don't see a scenario outside of Zion getting traded in a big trade to a contender or something and the media just pumping it to the moon. I don't really see a scenario where Zion's cards rebound significantly. He can't stay healthy. He wasn't playing particularly well this year when he was playing. I think these two guys being next to each other, Zion and Kawhi, is a really sad turn of events overall. And then we're kind of into that 10% category. Anthony Edwards down 6%. Karl Anthony Towns down 6%, who's been a huge defensive liability for a Knicks team that almost made it to the finals with their defense last year. Yeah, that trade, I don't know. We'll see how that trade plays out over time, I guess. Banchero only down 5.7% in spite of being injured is kind of surprising to me. Luka's down 5%, and then we're kind of into the negligible changes over the last 60 days. So let's look at some notable stuff. I got Luka Doncic here. Let's talk about Luka. So this card actually down significantly more. Is Prism Silver right at $1,000, down $300. This is from 60 days ago, and down 24%. So I don't know. Maybe now's the time to buy Luka. Then again, the Mavs are, as of right now, early in the season, at 500 and on the outside of the playoffs looking in. They'd have like the 4 seed in the East, which is abysmal. But unfortunately for them and their fans, they're in the West. You got Jason Tatum. He's up 15% on his Prism Silver PSA 10. The Celtics are obviously having a really good season. Let's look at Jokic. This card obviously not as high pop 174, down 5%. Giannis down 12.5%. What a disaster for the Bucks. I have officially been proven wrong about Damian Lillard to the Bucks. I was very optimistic about Lillard. I love Drew Holiday, but I thought the Bucks had to do something offensively to be able to compete with the Celtics. And then the Celtics went and got Drew Holiday, and well, we know how that played out last year. So Giannis looks fantastic. He's putting up incredibly gaudy stat lines. Still probably behind a few people like Shea and Jokic and a few others maybe in the MVP race, but he's having a really good season. Personally, I don't know, trade rumors, what do you think is going to happen with Giannis? If he's going anywhere, personally, if he's going anywhere, I'd like to see him on the Thunder, or I'd like to see him playing with Luka. My ultimate dream is to see Giannis and Shea and Luka and Jokic on the same teams, and then to compete for many years to come. I think that'd be fantastic for the NBA. Anthony Edwards, he's down 4% on his Prism Silver, and then Wemby down 15% on his Prism Silver. So, some notable movements on some big names. These are some of the, obviously, like the more expensive Prism Silvers on the market for basketball. And then some of the guys, some of the younger guys, I think worth looking at from recent years. Top draft picks, Zion down 13%, Cade down 12%, Chet up 69% in the last 30 days. I don't know. Be careful with that card. I'd probably sell that card right now, knowing the injury, if I had it. Jaws down 9%, Jalen Green basically flat, down 2%, and Paolo up actually 9% in the last 30 days. Again, in spite of the injuries. So I don't know, kind of funny to see sometimes those cards just, people are reluctant to sell them so they don't move as much. Let's move into the last kind of potpourri category here. And I'm looking at, I'll show you the filters here, by the way, if you want to do this. So you can put in different filters for this price movements page. I put in hockey, MMA, soccer, golf, tennis. I picked a bunch of years going back to 2009. I selected rookie cards only, graded cards only, average sale price of $25 with at least 25 sales in the last 60 days. So that just kind of helps you filter to the stuff that matters, which is nice. So I am not a hockey expert. And a lot of times every year these new guys break out that many of you hockey fans know, and I don't necessarily know who they are. So I'm going to kind of go through some of the players that I do know. Kirill Kaprizov is obviously young, very talented, has a ton of buzz behind him. Kirill the Thrill. Khamzat Chimaev, oh man, that was like one of the most uncomfortable tap-out submissions that I've seen in a long time with Robert Whittaker, where first of all, Khamzat just made Whittaker look like he honestly shouldn't even be in the UFC, which he should. He's a fantastic fighter. And he got his arm around his jaw and basically like broke part of it and displaced his teeth. If you want to gross yourself out and ruin your lunch, go look up a video or a photo of that, because you could see Whittaker just tap, and it was really confusing. It wasn't confusing after I saw the picture. So Chimaev is looking like very much like a title contender in a very stacked division weight class. Cole Caulfield obviously is a guy that was very hot over the last few years. He's played well. He's up 14.5% in the last 60 days. Adam Fox is a guy we've seen get hot many times in the past. Alex Pereira up 5%. I don't know. I don't think we're going to end up seeing Pereira-John Jones fight, but who knows? Dana White's saying, like, no way would he do it. He just came out and said there's no way because he thinks John Jones is too big for Pereira to handle. I don't know. We'll see. At this point, Pereira, looks untouchable outside of one kind of counterpunch that Izzy landed on him to knock him out. So it'd be a fun fight to watch, but I'm personally rooting for Aspinall and John Jones, and I have a very strong opinion that that's going to go in favor of the new up-and-comer if that happens. Pulisic's actually been playing pretty well, which is exciting. Hopefully that carries over to Team USA with World Cup coming up in a couple of summers. Kachuk up 4.8%. Connor Hellebuck, he was up a ton. I'm going to show one of his cards in a minute here. He was up a ton. He's actually come back down on his young guns, but he's had a fantastic start to the season in goal. Let's kind of scroll down. Makar, Vinny, McKinnon, surprising, honestly, to see him down 4% because he's having a fantastic year. McDavid, we're going to look at him a little bit more closely. Erling Haaland, I can't figure out why Erling Haaland's card prices aren't more expensive than they are. I don't get it. He's easily one of the two best soccer players in the world right now, in my opinion. So I don't quite understand that, but his cards have continued to come down and not go up. Let's scroll down here. Mbappe's down 13%. We're going to talk about Lamine Yamal. Here's a couple of guys. Lafreniere down 15%. Bedard down 15%. Let's kind of keep scrolling. Draisaitl down 21%, and he's actually having another good season. He's always in the mix for points. Jude Bellingham was very hot for a while, very, very, very hot. So it looks like he's come back down to earth, down 31.5%. And then, let's see, down at the bottom, okay, like nobody major standing out to me here. Sad to see Lucas Raymond of the Red Wings down 36.5%. All right, so let's look at some hockey stats here, because this helps me to kind of know what's going on. Like I said, I'm a casual hockey fan who really likes to watch the playoffs and especially the Stanley Cup Finals. But I don't, obviously, a lot of times have time to watch many of the games during the regular season. So like I said, McKinnon, he's leading the league, 34 points so far, 27 assists. Kaprizov's in the mix there, doing it on both ends at 33 points. Eichel's a guy we see up there a lot. Draisaitl with 27, Rantanen and Makar both in the mix. Kucherov, the usual suspects. Alexander Ovechkin with 15 goals, leading the NHL in 18 games played, and closing in on what some thought might be an unbreakable record of Wayne Gretzky's goals scored record. Nobody will ever catch Wayne Gretzky's points record, but his goals record is very much within shot for Ovechkin. In fact, I think he will break it. This is what's surprising is Connor McDavid. Now you look at him, you're like, well, he's 12th in points, but we're not really used to seeing him that far down on the list, and I think that's why his card prices are down. So if I look at his points per game, 1.31 points per game so far this year, that's significantly less than the last couple of seasons at 1.74, 1.87. In fact, that's the lowest that he's had really since the 2017-18 season. So he's still fantastic. I'm sure he's probably going to turn it on more this season. I know I was personally rooting for the Oilers to win the World Series, to win the Stanley Cup last year, just because I think Connor McDavid needs that for his legacy. But we'll see. We'll see what happens the rest of the way. Another Connor who I'm just not high on right now at all personally for a lot of reasons is Connor Bedard. I think he's just in a really bad situation. If we jump over and we look at the NHL standings and go to the bottom, the Blackhawks are the worst team in hockey this year, and it just doesn't look like it's going to get any better for them anytime soon. It's really hard to build multiple lines and to get a comprehensive, good team, well-coached team, and turn things around super fast. So even if he's fantastic, the rest of the team has to be too, or it's just easy to close him out. So he's only got 3 goals in 19 games. That's significantly less than his 1 per 3 games last year. 12 assists, -6 plus minus. It's just not really been a great season so far for Connor Bedard, and as a result of that, his prices are down a lot. The Washington Capitals are in first in the East and second overall in points in the NHL, so they're having a fantastic year. Ovechkin's having a fantastic year. So as a result, Ovechkin up 24% and Kaprizov up 31%. McDavid down 10%. Hellebuyck now down 4%. You can see this was the big up that Hellebuyck had where he was up, that was up 71%, and now he's just come crashing back down to earth. I guess even hockey cards can be reactive sometimes. And then Bedard down 12.8%, and honestly, I would sell those cards right now if I had them because $677 is still very expensive. Like, look at this. His Young Guns base is pop 6,119 in a PSA 10. And that card is still selling for $677. Nathan McKinnon's is pop 1,700 and it's $525. I'm not a hockey expert. I won't pretend to be. But that, to me, would concern me. You guys let me know. If you know hockey, let me know in the comments what you think about this graph in particular. I like ChatGPT for fun info, and it's very useful. So I did something fun here and said, explain all of Lamine Yamal's world records and impressive feats so far. And you should go do the same thing. And I will just scroll down. I'm not going to read through all of this. But this kid, he's the real deal. I'm telling you, he is the real deal. He's incredibly young, incredibly talented. Just turned 17 years old. Played in the Euro Cup, youngest player to score in Euro Cup, youngest player to do a million different things. And he is leading La Liga so far in 12 appearances so far with 7 assists. He's also got 5 goals, and he's the real deal. Barcelona's very good. He's very good. It definitely helps having Robert Lewandowski on your team. I wonder how many of those 7 assists were set up to Lua. Probably at least a few of them, I imagine. But he's amazing. For 17 years old, it honestly doesn't make sense in a sport that is so athletic and endurance. It's just like he's playing really well. I think something that's interesting, personally, is his rookie cards. And this Topps Chrome UEFA Club Competitions hobby box is $200. The Jumbo, $440. And you can get his rookie cards out of that box. So I'll jump over here and show you. Not the Optic Hollows. That's a different product, which is another maybe interesting one to look at. But these Club Competitions cards, his base PSA 10, $47. That's pop 412. And then you've got his refractor. That one's at $130. So some of these up, some of them down significantly. Again, on the optics, I think it has everything to do with the timing, and those were very high when they came out. The PSA 10 pop count still very low, around 112 and 171. I think these are actually really good. Personally, I think they're really good investment cards long term if you believe in Lamine Yamal. If you can afford to get big Lamine Yamal cards, just my opinion. I don't know. I think he's a fantastic player. We've seen a lot of other players in the past who were supposed to be really good and didn't pan out. And soccer's kind of funky. You got to really be the top 1 to 2 and score a lot of goals and be involved in the offense heavily, but I think he's got the potential to do that going forward. And then this is just what I call like the GOAT tracker. Just one more screen. You didn't see Ovi on the other page with hockey because I didn't go fully back to his rookie year. So here he is. Ovechkin up 21% in the last 60 days. Miggy up 5%. And then I got Drew Brees, Curry, Barry Sanders, Peyton Manning, Sidney Crosby, Patrick Mahomes, Messi, Bonds, LeBron, Kobe, Tom Brady, Pujols, Jeter. You can look at the whole list here. Jordan's down 6%, Mike Trout down 7%. So this is kind of just the current and not all time, but like GOAT tracker going back to the 90s up until now, the top 1 or 2 players from every sport, every generation. So one thing I'll point out, you can save searches on charts like this. You can actually save searches so that you can reference back to them later. You just click this little save button and then it'll pop you open and you have saved charts here that you can look at and go into. But you can't yet, and this is something very much on our development roadmap, you can't save a price movements filter, strictly speaking. You can see I've got a lot in here, so I'm like, oh, I don't want to add these in every time. I'd really like to be able to save those. We're going to do that in the app. But one thing that is cool, you can actually just save it to your browser. The URL is unique. So if you save it to your browser, then you can have all of those saved things. And I do that with some of these searches just to be able to pull them up and compare apples to apples or have these interesting comparisons. So a little pro tip. I know it's a little hacky. We're going to get it in there. We're working on some other really exciting things right now for market movers, which I think you're all going to absolutely love. So that's one way you can save these. People have asked me about that in the past. All right, my throat's getting sore, and that's the end of this video. I really appreciate you sticking with me through this one. Like I said, I like to do these market updates periodically, and I really love to hear from all of you down in the comments about who you're high on, who you might be selling right now. Is there anybody I didn't mention in today's video that you think is sneaky? Let us know. Let's get the conversation started down below. And as always, make sure to subscribe to this channel, like this video, give me a thumbs up, hit the bell icon, all those things, and go check out Market Movers at marketmoversapp.com. Use that code DIVE to get 2 weeks completely free and 20% off any plan. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, happy investing, keep on collecting, and make sure to have fun.